call the Board of Education meeting to order at 7:18. Thank you for your patience waiting on that important ceremony we did for our students. Thank you for everyone joining us, guests and board members, faculty. We could all rise to say the pledge of allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, lots of people. Kate Beaupilant,
Here.
Megan Wicks, Kathy Grant,
Here.
Erica Kalwara,
Here.
Valerie Musciano, Sarah Thompson, Christopher Wilson.
Here.
Also present is Adam Burrows, Amy Cefaletto, Lloyd Johnson, and several staff members.
Okay, well, as we do every board meeting, we'll say the Volunteer Board of Education mission is. Volunteer Board of Education's mission is to provide our students the skills essential to reach their highest potential in a safe environment for learning as they aspire to become responsible, respectful, and civic-minded members of society. We commit to help educate, challenge, and inspire each child to excel as lifelong learners who can adapt constructively in an ever-changing, multicultural, and technological world. At this point, we do have citizens in the room. Is there anyone that has any comments or anything to say? Welcome to. Well, thank you for coming. And then have people. Okay, at this point, I think we are not having a presentation from Bristol. Is that correct? I don't
Right.
think- Okay.
I
Yes.
can't say.
So we will table that to somewhere time this summer, perhaps, give them more time. Yeah. Yeah. Want to give them their full meetings, go that full time. We've got quite a packed agenda here. Okay. Well, we can roll into our consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at that? Do you have a motion to?
I just wanted to make a note on the minutes that were posted online. There was just a couple corrections for the date, the time and location of the town meeting. I had said it was in the gym, but it's going to be at the town, not the town meeting, the referendum. It's going to be at the town hall. And Tracy also made some corrections, which will be amended to her comments on the traffic lights and the safety of Route 138.
All right, so we would do, if we make a motion to approve the consent agenda, it will be as amended for these comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm gonna oppose because I'd like to see the amendments before.
Okay, would you want me to read them to you
Oh,
specifically?
you have,
I do.
you do?
Do you, on Tracy's comments?
Yeah, just, so
Okay.
obviously the changing of the
On-
location is fine,
Right.
yes.
And
but,
then she said that she changed the wording that the flashers, because I had said like the old signs would be removed, but she corrected it to say the flashers on the old signs will be removed. The other thing is she clarified my wording. I had said the traffic light. I think I said set a stop sign at the three-way intersection at Rockville Road, but she corrected it to say a traffic light at the intersection of Route 49, Shetucket Turnpike, and Route 138 and 165 at that intersection, and then an always stop at the intersection of Rockville Road and Route 165. Those were the exact corrections.
Then I'll.
Not opposed. Okay.
All in favor, all opposed, motion passes. We can move into administrative reports. Supplemental.
You can see in my report, there's combined May and June, some highlights there on the top. We recently had our semi-formal dance, so it kind of kicks off the end of the year for our students. Today is our first day of our countdown, so 26 days in remaining in the school year for our students. Yeah, that's how fast it goes by.
Mhm.
Spring break week is this week, with Brian and the YSD coming on a great amount of activities. Caleb Barber and Haley Davis had helped first. So it was really well attended, especially Lego night last night, was huge. They had big Legos come, so it was really great to see. There's a lot of
were incredible. Just.
the baskets, well, to all the parents and
Yeah.
families and grandmas and grandpas who sent in the items, there were 27 baskets. And we got, probably 8 or 9 donations from like places all around, so the Go Kart place and the aquarium. And so, they've been doing that all week as part with YSB for basket raffles, raise money for PTO, so all that, it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah.
A lot of American Girl stuff, so, you know, a hot basket, so that was really great to see and have to come to fruition.
And obviously all the volunteers that were.
And all the volunteers, yes, a lot of volunteers that were helping to put all those together. We are in the midst of our benchmark, I think we have completed SBAC, all of our students have completed SBAC testing, which includes kids who take a specified test, a special test, or the generic population that take regular SBAC. So all that has been completed. One last thing on there, I do want to put a plug in for the board, you know, staff really appreciates allowing us to take field trips. Not many schools get to go on trips, so all of our kids get to go in May. Is a big month for field trips. So 5 and 6 recently went to the Seaport, so they were due to go to see a live performance of Percy Jackson. And they read the series and they canceled on us the day before in the afternoon. So we were scrambling to find something else. So we ended up at the Seaport, which was just as good as beautiful weather this past Tuesday. We got to do a couple of programs there. So at first they were like, oh, Seaport, but it's got the Seaport. But they actually got to do programs. So they did programs and then they kind of walked around. So that was really great for them. We do have a lot coming up for them and for our 8th graders as usual, their end of the year activities. So I think really for me, that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Sepulveda. Director of Student Services, Mr. Johnson.
Try to keep it short. We received communication from the State Board of Ed that our annual report regarding special education services, it meets requirements. So we're reading our paper and our reports in a timely manner. So it's good to hear. We're in the midst of transition meetings for our youth group going on to high schools. We have quite a few youngsters that have the 504 accommodations plans, more than the usual. So we've had quite a few meetings, trying to squeeze them in so that they happen during people's planning meetings and not taking them away from instruction. Amy's been talking with our department about schedules and planning for student needs for next year as kids move up from one grade to the next. That planning basically is taking place. Something that I toyed with putting in my report, and I'll do this later, but we have another mandate from the state. In an effort, I think this is the state's effort to monitor young people going into the workforce, aligned for sub-minimum wage jobs. In order for them to find out whether there are any or how many there are, we have to submit a report within 30 days of a student's high school graduation or after they turn 22. The first hurdle is to get permission of those young people to submit this report to the state, because it does include their IEP and other pertinent data. So my secretary and I are working on putting a list together and then working on getting the documents out. So there'll be more, once we get more detail, we'll update you next time. But that's something that's taking some time, but the federal effort has been in a number of areas to see that people with disabilities are trained and helped with obtaining wages that are above minimum wage. So this is sort of their effort to find out if there is a cadre of people who are not going to be eligible for at least minimum.
Are we accountable for all volunteer students, or are we only accountable, like, so I'm thinking, obviously, all of our kids go to different high schools, so are those high schools gonna be the ones that are responsible for that, and we're only responsible for kind of our 20, 21-year-olds that we have, or are we responsible for all high schoolers that are graduating?
We're responsible for the youngsters who have an address in Volunteer.
Okay.
The other schools have to take care of their own kids. They have the same requirement, the same data is due. But I anticipate some challenges in having all of the youngsters affected give permission for all this data to be sent to the state. I hope that's not the case. And the kind of rapport we have with our families would not, in my mind, indicate that that's going to be a problem. But this clearly is something that if the child has majority rights, that it's their decision to sign the form allowing the school district to release the records.
You're talking just people with IEPs and PCTs, not every student.
I just feel like sometimes it's difficult for us to grab information from the high schools. I think that we've talked about that a lot, where we're looking for things like graduation rates and all of that, and it feels like it's very challenging to get for that information. So, this is just another layer to that. So I was curious, kind of.
As I look at the list of what's being required, I believe my office has all the data. Okay, but again, it's the first step is to have the release the signs of the youngsters or their guardians if the youngsters, because of the need for adult supervision in their legal life. Don't have, the parents have the guardianship.
Yeah, I'm just thinking hypothetically, if you have a student who has an IEP 504 and has gone up to a high school and then has opted to not graduate and kind of leaves the fold, I think that would be a challenge really to track down.
That will be. Definitely. Our dropout rate is small, but it's not zero.
Last meeting, there was a brief discussion that maybe an outplacement student or two would be able to be served here at our school. Is that next year? Is that moving forward?
We have a student that's, we're planning on servicing them at a closer, less expensive placement, not next year, but the year after.
Will that save transportation time and things of that nature as well?
If that change happens, it will save significant transportation costs. We have one other student that's in a very good program, but it's a long way away. And we share transportation with Griswold, because they have their own student that goes to the same program. I don't see that student returning to us on the short term because of the significant issues and the wide range of support services that the student needs. And I don't believe in forcing a parent to leave a placement they're very comfortable and confident in. That's not how I approach my thinking. When the parent, and it's happened in the past, said they're not happy, or there's some problems, then you're very quick to work with the family and find a placement that's meets the needs. And in most cases, we've been able to do that with placements that have been closer, and sometimes the tuitions are significantly less, and that's helped us.
I'm also concerned about the long time being and just sitting in a van. That's difficult,
It is.
I imagine, for the student. And socialization at that time, if the student's in a van alone, all of that's just not good in general.
It's something we take into consideration very, very seriously. In the case of the one child that I'm alluding to, there are two students that go, so there is some camaraderie. But still, at the same time, I have to be very careful not to say anything that would downplay the child. Then I'll get in big trouble. I'm sorry, but seriously. We want, just to be as close to their school as possible. It's been very pleasing, to see all of the to chair so many meetings this spring. And see the variety of options our high school students have. Will is doing a great job, as well as the other schools, with the different sizes and opportunities they have. And we've had a larger than usual number of students be accepted by tech schools. And they just, as I've reported before, most of the IEPs are fairly mild or light, but even if they're kind of significant, they're as well equipped and want the students as much as any public high school. So it's been good to see families have their children get into their school of choice. So, that's been good. And I think they appreciate being able to have those options and choices.
It's good to hear the update on Wheeler because they've only been a high school option for, a couple of years now. And that was a question mark, was whether they were gonna be able to meet the needs of all students.
We're on my time with them, we're graduating the first two seniors. And they've done a really good job of helping the students get through school, but also develop good plans for the future. As is happening in NFA and Griswold over the years, all three major high schools take transition very seriously and have really good programs to help kids get ready for the next step.
Well, as you think about next year for students, a question on like taking your temperature of how do you think we're prepared for meeting the needs, special education needs for the existing student body that we have? And are there any areas where you need additional support or resourcing in order to continue to meet the needs in the way in which you?
Well, one of the things that I'd like you to keep in mind is the four special education teachers in our department service 9 grades, which is, there's no other school I've ever been involved in where they had that grade spread. Okay. We also have some excellent paraprofessionals that help us. And recently, we've had a small number of very young kids through birth to 3 come with significant needs. And Amy is a scheduling wizard and takes the lead when you need to hire somebody new. And the people that we've brought on board to help those fairly needy youngsters are doing a great job. And so right now, I believe we have the resources we need to meet the needs of the kids we currently have. You never know what's going to happen. But right now, I think we're a little okay. And Amy has been working with some department members on scheduling kids so that they receive the support services or the direct instruction services they need in small groups that are age appropriate. I would hate to be in a situation where, because we're shorthanded, we have to have 3rd graders getting reading in the same room as a 5th or 6th grader. And right now we don't have to do that. We're able to spread the instructions out and and be responsive to the middle school schedule and how it runs. And the elementary program, and when the kids have reading or math or the special. So far, I'm really looking for what there are. And then it's a challenge when they have a number of evaluations they have to do, because those are ongoing needs. And as I've said earlier in other meetings, we've been very supportive if someone needs a substitute. Bring someone in to cover an instructional period for a couple of kids with an IEP, so that that teacher, the special education teacher, can give an achievement test, or something to a student. And it takes a period, but you don't have the time or to get that done. I think the collaborative atmosphere in the building has been very helpful to get everything done for the kids. And I think it's just one more minute. The state came out with a little requirement. I have to read a special statement at the beginning of every PPT, which basically informs the parent that if there's an issue they're not happy with, mediation is an option. And that kind of discussion with our families, because of the rapport we've established with them. I won't say it's strange, but it's, okay, I've heard it. So we really worked hard to build trust, to create trust with the families, because like the last 3 years, teachers and parents are working together. The child benefits, and if the teacher and the parents are at odds, the loser is the child. So we really work hard to make sure that that's trusted. What we want to do with the children, we get permission and support. This is the child's best interest. Sorry about this.
But we're also responsible for pre-K 3 and 4. We don't have any children with special needs right now in pre-K 3 and 4.
No, we do.
Oh,
We do. Oh,
We're spanning 11 years.
Not mine.
well, you're right.
Yeah, we're spanning 11 years.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. You're right.
And
You're right. The pick is
You were saying the clarification of somebody, somebody at the second grade level versus the sixth grade level. I'm thinking of like the pre-K level, and the fourth grade level. Even that's one space too.
We want to try to give as much individual or very small group of instruction as possible in the different subjects.
Our percentage of identified kids is on the higher side, but I do believe it's because a couple good factors. We're good at identifying early on, and that kid, there's parents that seek out this school for support because we have a reputation for providing really good support. There is though, and I understand that when you take a look at like the number of identified students though, or the number of teachers, I'm like, wait a minute, that seems low, the caseload, but when we describe how it's allocated, it's a better understanding. And I do know that students with multiple disabilities, it's a different, you can't just go by numbers, correct?
Right.
So in terms of allocation, like how is it spread? Like how does the services provided? Do you have 2 at the lower levels, 2 at the higher levels?
Exactly.
For people with kidney?
Exactly. We have one person who focuses mostly on our younger children. And then we have another person that does that same group, but a little bit older, that overlaps. And then we have 2 people that focus mostly in the middle school. And there's some co-teaching that's taking place at the middle school level. I think right now it's happening in social studies, language arts.
Yeah, it's
and
another
science.
some
And,
on reading, comprehension.
it's going on. It's going on. And at the same time, we have some self-contained programs at the middle school because we have a small number of youngsters that need their specialized instruction is so far below the grade they're in that they need that differentiated instruction in a small group. And, so we've got, a number of balls in the air trying to meet the needs of all those kids. So, I think when I was an elementary principal, I was K to 5, I had 2 special education teachers, but then each one had a tutor who had a bachelor's degree, and then 2, 3, or 4 paraprofessionals, depending on the caseload. So they led a team, and the number of minutes they might have, special ed teachers might have been able to spend with individual students doing instruction on a percentage level is probably very significantly lower than what our team is able to do. Because they do have paraprofessional support, but the main instructional provider is a special education teacher who does the significant amount of the instruction and all the planning. And then the paraprofessional is also using instruction, but it's really quite directly into the guidance to the special education teacher. So the caseloads might have been actually different, but the instruction structure, the planning structure.
I can also envision like when we, as a district, decided to bring in or take in services from places that we would work with some at some point in time outsource or outplace, bring them back in, all of that type of support needed requirement for that is still in play. And I can only imagine if it's getting full attention in outplacement to bring it in-house, that requires very customized service and unique.
The one service we don't have on campus, the BCBA. And
What is that? Sorry.
board certified behavioral analyst.
So
It's usually a school psychologist that's on another year. And it's a person who can really work on developing plans for students with significant behavioral issues or with significant autism. Did you want to comment
Yeah,
on
no, they're a behavior specialist. So what they do is they help come in and identify what the behavior is and what the function is. Once you know the function of behavior, what's happening, why is it occurring, then you can build a plan. And so opposed to in the best of worlds, collaborate with all the teachers and whomever support staff that work with that student in order to build a very supportive plan that works at behavior management, emotional management, to get them to do what expected behavior. It's pretty intense.
when we've needed
It's very
that?
helpful.
When we've needed that kind of support, we have bought the services of a consultant. And one of our, the four of them all have had some exposure to it, but one of them, because that person deals with our younger kids who are younger youngsters who seem to may have that need more than some of the others, have developed quite a bit of expertise. But over the course of the last few years, we've had a number of students come back and help those needs with behavioral monitoring films. So everyone in the department is familiar with it. But when we have a student with, I'll use the phrase, a unique need, then we turn either to learn or to EastCon. They have BCBA resource staff, and they can come out, observation, provide some support. But that's not someone that's available right away with us.
And one other question.
Yeah.
I think on many meetings ago, we had talked about that I think between you and Amy, you were instituting a system to be able to look at students' 504 and IEP plans and ensure that the list of activities that are needed to carry out. I understand not all accommodations may be there, but may not be used, but I think we were looking at making sure that like if something is spelled out in one of probably the plan that's being carried out in the classroom, that the teachers have the appropriate support to be able to follow each of the plans as needed. Can you comment on where we are in that process? And maybe in a future board meeting, can you
Sure,
provide?
questions to Amy,
to Amy.
she helped
Okay.
develop, book.
Yeah. But I think too, it would be helpful to see some objective data around that, as well as a part of the report out each month to understand kind of how that's playing.
So we did that as a trial this year to see if that would be best for our current situation, how many, and how teachers implement and how the special ed team implements. So we're going to make some tweaks to it next year. We're going to actually probably put it more online than in a binder. Becomes cumbersome to collect, but we really tried to work and collect the data so we knew what we were doing, how often we were doing it, how are these accommodations being met and utilized. So that's something we've been working with as a team, figuring out what is the best plan of action. You know, I'm not using it every day. I need to know from the people who are actually using it and implementing. Does that work the best? Or is this something we need to move away from and implement something better for them to use? You know, the online platforms are great, but when you know, like CT says, it's not really that great, but you know, it's better. I lie, it's not that great. You know, but as a regular like teacher going into that and having to find your accommodations, you want something that's in front of you. And I don't know how you know, you guys at NFA use, I don't know how Val uses it, like, it's hard to keep that paperwork together. So what is the best system? And each person really is individualized in how they
This is
live.
to help follow up with goal objectives and how
This is help ensuring that regular teachers are utilizing
on the
the kids' plans and the modifications
modifications.
and accommodations and how, and making sure that we're like, you know, your hands are touching those all the time and being able to go through them and just being accountable for, you know, and with all the balls they have to juggle, also doing that piece. So that is one thing, you know, we've been trying about, we can, you know, update at the end of the year once we have our meeting to figure out, okay, how well did this work for us? Will we, and, you know, move forward with this again? I think we're gonna go more digital, so it's like in one space, you know, in that piece. So, you know, those have been constant talks about like, what is the best method for our teachers who have to, you know, something when you're the special ed teacher and you know your students and you're like, oh, yes, 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 yes. When you're the regular teacher and you have, you know, 6 kids and you're working on doing, you know, accommodations or modifications for them, ensuring that you're doing them and doing them all the time.
Yeah,
So that's a hard one.
No, I know it was a new process this year. I think it would just be nice one to get a readout sort of the, what did you like, what did you learn? What are your plans? What are you doing next? To adapt, right? And then, but I think too, on like a go forward basis, to be able to have that, you know, it's helpful to look at your data here, like you have in here, you know, the number of IEPs and 504s, but to also kind of have some other objective data that's reported to the board each month of how, whatever the process that's implemented, how that's going. And just to give us, you know, a little bit more of some detail on there.
One of the things we ask at meetings is, what accommodations are on paper for the student?
Mhm.
What accommodations are they needing? So that we like to make the list shorter as time goes on, especially with 504 accommodation plans. A plan for a youngster, they have a lot of things in there that the adults are responsible for. But as time goes on, we really want the student to take more ownership of asking for when they need this, knowing when they need that kind of thing. Or when they no longer need something. So we work on getting, and the only way you can get that list shorter is by asking at the meeting, what's being used, what's necessary, and what needs to be written differently so that it falls more on the students instead of saying, when needed, we say if requested. Some of those subtleties in the language help us to begin moving we always want to work on building the student's self-advocacy skills. And the child can't do that until they begin to know more about themselves, what their strengths are, where they need some help. And our counselor frequently on her caseload is working with students to come to understand that so that they don't see themselves as less than equal, but just a person that needs a little extra help so they can do as well as they want to do. And it's a very subtle difference, but if we don't do a good job doing that, then we have a student that doesn't think they can be successful. And we're not. And we do not want that. So we listen very carefully as we have meetings with the younger students. I listen for the kinds of anecdotes that are shared about how they're feeling about things, what they say about themselves, and when to bring the counselor and her goal process into working with the youngsters to develop positive self-image. And I always tell parents, you never praise your child for being smart. That stifles Christy. Praise your child for commitment, hard work, and trying to do their best. And that's what we want to the children to realize that. I had a meeting just today with a second grader, and a parent was telling us that their child is now engaging more in work. And the teacher was saying the same thing. So there's a little person that's turning the corner. They're realizing that I'm not at school for 6 hours to avoid work. I will feel a lot better about myself if I engage in the work, get it done, and learn something. We really want to help kids to be able to turn. So, meeting on with all the sense.
Helpful. Any further questions, Dr. Johnson? Well, thank you very much, Lloyd, and all the staff here, since you're here in person. Thank you for all you do for our supporting our children, all the children who need special services. It's a very huge job, and we know it's a valued role, and it's day in, day out. It's very much appreciated. But thank you for the more intensive review for us in this meeting. Okay, can move along. Oh, sorry, I didn't. I did not forget. Young business.
Yeah, you want to see it?
Superintendent report.
My calendar
Keep it if you
events
want,
for
I can
May,
print it
June, and
out.
July are submitted in the packet. Our enrollment right now, 238 students pre-K through 8, 127 high school
Maybe move it up.
students. Within the consent agenda that you just approved, the remaining balance right now is $1,209,380, or 17.14% of the budget. As you know, at the end of the year, we have a number of expenses, but I anticipate that we will try to return to the town about 4 cents. And, we can work that through.
Plenty
And
of
the
the year.
things that we engineer at the end of the year may help us. When we get into the budget report, I'll tell you a little bit about that. So far, we've returned $91,329.50 to the town. You know, when I was in a regional school district, we didn't turn it over to the town. We put it in our budget and we used it. But, I think that we should get some credit for returning that money to the town. In your packet is the draft of the town government budget. Yes, it had a 6.87% increase. And there's also the town capital improvement plan. And in their plan, they put money and allocation for the generator. They put down $85,000, but we have the generator that's very old and we've had it serviced. And we asked our service company, if we had to make an emergency replacement, what would you charge? Okay, the quote came out $127,000. But of course, the town is gonna, take over the process of securing the generator. We want one outside because if we put it inside the building, there's other complications with doing that. And the towns, even though I gave you a quote for an emergency repair, we're required to go through the procurement policy, and the town will send out a RFP for that project. You have some information about the building committee agenda, and that was on May 15th. I just wanted to let you know that we are moving ahead, with projects. And, one of the things that's happened is we had new outside cameras installed. And of course, the building committee made the decision to, utilize federal funds to do that. They put them in and they weren't working properly, so the company replaced 24 of the outside cameras. And then we used
That's what
another
was the
federal
lowest bid.
grant to have a new security system. This is the pass. You swipe it at the door and it's supposed to open it. Well, everybody out there can tell you some nightmare stories that were happening. So we met with the committee and the company, and I said, look, I have a board meeting on May 9th. And I don't want to go in and say, these cards aren't working. So a note, as of today, Mike wrote me a note. I'm happy to share with you that all the door sensors have been replaced with brand new equipment. The new readers were tested before and after. All of them worked without incident. The best way to assess the reader now is to make sure, you have combat. But the thing is that this company replaced all of the readers, and we're gonna watch with that. And yes, Board of Education, I used you as kind of a sledgehammer, because I said, I really don't want to go into the Board of Ed meeting and say our badges are not working, because this is a security issue, a high security issue. If a teacher needs to get into the building and they're outside, they can't be stopped at a door that's supposed to open. And so thank you, Board of Ed, for being used as a kind of a weapon to help people know you only want to have good stories in the minutes. Certification alert. The State Department allows us to work with emergency educator certification, endorsements. If we have a need in some areas, they will allow us to have a teacher with another certification. And then the state just passed legislation with this last week. And what it says is after 5 or 6 years, if you have a teacher that might have a certification, let's see, grades 1 through 6, and we need a math teacher in grade 7, then that experience in the local school district can make a decision to have a teacher teach a 7th grade class. And I will tell you, we have teachers sitting in the audience right now. They could probably handle any grade, but with your certification, except for special ed, that's pre-K through 12 or K through 12. But it's just another thing. There's a CRAC community flyer in there, and they like to have us finish take the survey, and that helps with planning for our Youth Service Bureau and Local Prevention Council. The CABE advocacy highlights, there was an alert regarding the Teacher Tenure Act, and then CABE policy highlights warmer weather, dress code, important updates with Title IX, and then there was one other thing that I had here, and I need to pass this out because our School Readiness Council, made a decision. Here, I think that isn't enough that way, and then these can go this way. The School Readiness Council, well, Amy writes the grant, okay? And we're required to have an appointed liaison to the Office of Early Childhood by the selectmen. You can pass that on, Lloyd, to the people if you want. But this position has a number of responsibilities. But in writing the grant, the Board of Selectmen need to appoint somebody for the town to be our liaison. And I drafted a motion here for the Voluntown Board of Ed, and this is a motion to support the May 6th decision by the School Readiness Council to forward the name of Amy Sufaletto to the Board of Education to officially appoint her as the 25, I got to add a 5 in there, Voluntown School liaison to the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. And this is a requirement of the grant. You must have a liaison. So,
Motion.
You know, they want to move along.
Decision of the School Readiness Council for the name of Amy Sufaletto to the Board of Selectmen to officially appoint her as the 2024-25 Voluntown School Readiness Liaison to the Connecticut OEC or Office of Early Childhood. All in favor, motion carries.
and then if they voted, right?
Yeah.
And then in keeping with the process of grant writing, I try to make sure that the Board of Ed has it in their minutes of verification, because this supports the grant process. And we also have to send the motion by the Board of Selectmen into the Office of Early Childhood. And when you're writing grants, you have to check off all of these little blocks. And sometimes if you skip over one little thing, they say, wait a minute, you haven't submitted this. So this is just part of an overall process. And then when I get into the budget, I will talk a little bit about what is the roller coaster ride with special ed, because we were asked about meeting the needs of students. Since the last board meeting, we had a $50,507 high school special ed placement move into town. That's our cost. So since the last budget proposal, we include that. 2 days later, we had a $27,521 tuition qualified for graduation. So you can see that we had some expenses and then we saved some money. But the issue is within our budget, if a child needs something, then we do everything we can to make sure we meet those needs. And that brings me up to the next topic with new business.
Old business?
New business.
Old business. Transportation.
Transportation, in your packet, I gave you a summary. We have more wheelchair needs for special education students. In the fall, when we were looking at prices for a handicap van, they were $90,000, and there was a wait period of about 8 or 9 months. And then some things started changing a little bit. About a month and a half ago, I was working with the numbers, and we got a quote from the 97,000 to the 80,000, and working with the 2 companies involved with building this van, I said, come on, you have to have some statewide bid of numbers. And they got the number down to $76,800. We need this van as soon as possible. I need to go into my office tomorrow morning and process a purchase order and write this. They have the chassis waiting in one dealership, and then they send it to another company to put in all of the materials. Now, Preston said they got a van for 75,000, but I said, okay, 1 or 2 wheelchairs, and they said 1. Well, we have multiple needs now, so here we go. It's being built for 2 wheelchairs, and I'll tell you, I dropped somebody off at the doctor's office about a month ago. This van pulled in, this gentleman got out of the van, went to the back, pressed a button, and this wheelchair came out and was lowered to the ground and went into, and then somebody from the doctor's office rolled them in. And then another person came out with a wheelchair. And that's the kind of accessibility that we need. we are keeping our older van, which requires manually to push the wheelchair up the ramp. Well, I will tell you, when you have a preschooler or a first grader, you know, that's not too bad, but we had to put in a second person on the van to help as the children get older. We are keeping that van because we have some younger children who are coming in and they have wheelchair accessibility needs. So in the thing, I asked the board, and there's a motion here for the board, and this is a suggested thing, but we're to waive the bid process as a result of utilizing state bid prices for school district and approve the purchase of a Ford Transit van for $76,794.20.
I was gonna say, I was at the transportation committee and it was unanimous with everybody that we need this van. And that this van will work better, hopefully prevent any workman comp injuries, et cetera, like that. With this lifting these children in and out as they get bigger, but it was unanimous, everybody thought it was a good idea, and they all thought it would be a good recommendation. The size of it is big enough that if it has to be used, it can be used for wheeler as a regular van. You can take the wheelchair out, it could be used for marine magnet as a regular van. And you can still have, I believe it's 3 other children in the van with the 2 children. So family members can also ride, their siblings can ride in the van. Yeah.
Yes, that's right, Kathy.
Yeah, it was
And,
like,
and the
you
way
know,
that it's built, there's 3 permanent passenger seats. So the student's not riding alone, they might pick up some other students on the way. And if we're not using it for the wheelchair, you can put in 6 additional seats so that you could take 11 passengers and the driver. So you know, this is a very flexible item. And of course, the drivers are really, excited about this. And it's a cost saving because you could have one driver go down and pick up a student and, use the lift versus sending 2 people in the van to push the wheelchair up.
Then the committee was also worried even about the possibility of injuries, and then you talk about workers' comp stuff, and they can get both children. We have 2 next year, I believe, in the wheelchair van. It'll be just 1 run in the morning, it won't be 2 every.
This has been talked about for
Yeah.
like a little while now.
But it was really talked about the implementation committee, of why this ban in itself, this seems to be the one that our needs best.
Motion? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Same. Unheard. Motion passes. All in favor.
Yeah, is that
That's
coming
good.
out of this year's budget or next year?
It's this year's budget.
Yeah, the federal grants.
No, this year's budget, the van is coming out of.
It's in the budget that I'm gonna propose.
Next year.
It is the largest portion of the increase of the budget. But it has some long-term types of implications for maintaining a transportation budget that can go like this. And I'll talk about that in
Purchase it now with next year's funds, you can't.
next year's budget.
That's
Right,
the
how
one.
do you purchase it the next year? You know?
I just write a purchase order, July
So you-
1st.
you don't-
but
you won't
I-
pay for the- after the library.
They have to be
They'll all
constructed.
outfitted and everything.
So he puts the purchase order in, they construct it, they deliver it after July 1st.
And we can, and then you get it. So you don't need to pay for it like a regular car where it's like, you know.
No.
You can't pay.
They can get out.
That's something.
But they can work schools not.
Well, they told me they would take a letter of intent. I said if they needed me to send them a deposit, I would do that, but the money is in next year's budget.
Let's move forward there. Item number 2, federal and state grants.
Yes, well, you know, the building committee will be meeting next week, and we're going through a number of things, but the big thing is, we had, the $923,372 come in from 2021 to 23, and we have required, due dates for expending those. And, right now, we anticipate that the AC will be done, for the gym, the HVAC will be done for the gym, maybe even prior to July 1st. And then that closes out one grant. The AC for the gym is taking 96,000 from the grant, and the town allowed us to use money from the grant we didn't get, the 170. So we're not taking the gym HVAC out of the budget. We're taking it out of ESSER funds and money that the town set aside for applying for a grant that we did not use. So that would close out that account in time to meet federal guidelines. And as I reported to you, the state received $960 million. And as of last month, they still hadn't spent 420 million. Well, I just told you what we brought in. We've spent it all. It's all encumbered. So we passed that bridge. And then 2023, we've been in receipt of $161,368. One of them was the mental health grant. We got the social worker, and we also can use some of that funds to pay our school psychologist with working with students. And that grant was 67,000 over 3 years. The other one was we got a Title IV for 10,000 to purchase technology supplies. Of course, we got 42,320 for Title I. And we had a right to read grant materials, $33,000. I will tell you, Amy did a great job spending that money. We had a CRAC vaping grant, and there may be a couple of other little things that we're looking at to apply for. But as you know, when we apply for the grant, I always have a motion by the board to say we support this. So we've been moving along with all of the grants, and I think it's significant that we've been able to, you know, process these funds and being able to completely air condition the building, have after school programs, summer school programs to address learning loss, because a certain percentage of the grants had to be utilized for, you know, for learning and tutoring and other types of things. I think that's it.
Are we, excuse me, they did pass today in the House and Senate that all the leftover ESSER funds are gonna go to education. Will there be more coming down the road for us? Is that what that means? I don't
How
know.
can I put this? The last proposal for the excess cost funds that we had, we were being funded at 70%. And then there was something going around that they were going to give us 67%, you know, and then the legislators today, Kathy, said they want to fully fund the excess cost. I'll believe it when I see it. And, you know, this is one of those accounts where, you know, they've never fully funded the legislative formula that they developed.
And I guess that was.
And then the big thing that's coming around, and I haven't erased the board yet for 25-26. But next year, we're gonna get 2,117,000 and some change for the ECS grant. They have a formula out there, and the last time I looked at that formula, developed by the School Finance Project, a nonprofit group. We were slated in their formula to get $1,400,000. That's a $690,000 cut. And you know, what would that do to us? I mean, the only way that we've been saved is the legislators have overridden the formula by the School Finance Project. And I'm still watching that very closely because Eastern Connecticut does not fare well. And remember, even though that formula gives us a cut, the overall funding for ECS, when that cut was coming, was $127 million increase. So there are some communities that are getting significant increases. It's just something when you're talking to your legislators to be aware about. Okay, I think that's it. And then, yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with the learning loss too, like the numbers, they're kind of seeing their test scores come back in, you know, certain areas, it's very market, you know, after the pandemic, just where they need to invest, you know, so the likelihood of us seeing any of it is probably less, but I'm glad it's going to education. Okay, we've hit upon several capital improvement plan items. Is there anything you want to highlight or like the
Just the capital improvement.
Yeah.
I told you about taking the generator out of that. And we're getting some prices on the fire panel. But Megan, you asked me about how do we pay for this. The fire panel is something that I'm trying to look at any end of the year balances and money and when we get into the budget, I'll talk about that. But I'm getting concerned because, you know, we made a commitment. A lot of towns would have a building project and get state reimbursement. And, you know, every 25 years, they build a new school or they do some other things, but we've kept our building in good repair. But please remember, if we're trying to use money out of the existing budget, then that increases our per pupil cost. Now, in a regional school district, they borrow the money. In town school districts, the town usually pays for that. And when we first got here 18 years ago, there was a debt for the 2000 edition for the early childhood and the junior high school. That debt was not in the school budget, it was in the town budget. And then we worked in the town to pay that off, but we've been trying to take care of repairs in the building with the grants and with other types of things. And we need to make sure that we're having the priority list. And I think that we can continue with utilizing our school board funds. Unless the board wanted to go with a $45 million building project, which would give the town a long-term debt. But the thing is that we've kept the school in good repair. We put in air conditioning. We have an active indoor air quality committee. And this is important with the, you know, with our capital improvement plan. That's about it for that, unless there's any questions, but I think you're all fully aware of that.
We're good. Okay. Moving on to item number 4, the NFA contract.
Yes, the partner school district superintendents have been meeting. We've been negotiating with Nate Quisnell, the NFA director, and we've been trying to draft, you know, a contract that we can bring to our boards of education. We're making very good progress with that. Perhaps by the June meeting, I may have something for you, but remember, this is the 2025-2030 contract. So it doesn't get implemented until, you know, a year from this July. So, you know, there's time for the board to review that, to take a look at it and to also make suggestions. before we sign the Voluntown NFA agreement.
Thank you for the update there. We can move on to the safety on Route 138.
We went over that, didn't we?
Those were edits to last month's minutes, that's all.
But yeah, I think, so inside of our packet, at least it shows kind of some of the documentation that, Tracy was able to provide. She gave us kind of an oral, update on that last meeting, but this shows kind of the lettering back and forth and the schematics. Obviously, there's a lot going on that they're working on between the Gate Street update and our highest concern is the school, the blinking lights and school zone sign. So
Do we know if they ended up landing on who's removing the lights? Cause that was like the sticking issue, right? at the
Right.
Meeting or who was gonna remove the lights, do we know?
Just not.
I mean, it's the finding, and I'm looking to see if it has a date on it, never does.
Oh, so the town hall.
Yes.
Okay. She was
We didn't
trying
say
to,
that.
she was trying to get them to do it, so it sounds like they said no.
Oh, Tony Volunteer remove, yeah, existing washer, yeah.
Did you give a date when this will be done?
Not started.
They have to remove
They
the,
have to
they have to
remove the
remove
lights.
the original lights, so this is, and they don't have a person to remove the original lights. And they don't have.
It's up to DOT, we have no say whatsoever where this gets built.
We need the lights off
Yeah.
the existing signs that actually aren't even.
Part of DOT, they won't even come own them whatsoever, so.
I think we
Because-
could put the word out, there's some blinking yellow lights available, and I'm sure there's some locals, they'd be gone by the morning. Whereas two brothers are still open, we could announce it in there and it'd be gone.
Here.
Yeah.
You will not be televised.
Make the lights go away.
We could send Tracy a note for an update. If you want.
Yes, I think it was the removal of the lights, and then there was one other, she had to pull permits, or get
Well,
permits.
yes, right.
Correct.
Say, I think we'll get that at the town meeting too, because I'm sure that's it's one of the items that's on her list of the capital improvement plan. I remember that we got appointed a special last year as well. So. Okay, oops, I'll look here too. Yes, thank you. Item number 6 is the administrative goals for 2024-25. I think we've all had a chance to look at those.
I looked at the request that they do that as well as the BOE, we can make sure they're reading, I do have some recommendations that I put together that I just have not sent over yet.
Okay.
And get added in, so if we could just move that to the third reading.
Right, I just had a quick question on the education program. I know you've seen its administrative goals, Amy. Is the new math included in this?
So now that we've gotten it, now that'll be an update for the next, right, now that it's been approved, so. that
Okay.
has to be-
That was just a quick thing.
Yeah.
And then, oh, world language, whatever year we're in on.
Yeah, that was, yeah,
Well, it'll be,
right,
I mean, I probably would count this year as,
it's still
not this spring year.
Yeah.
It's actually next year one. Because.
I was just curious what your thoughts on
Yeah.
where we actually stand.
Yeah, I would count.
Yeah.
Year one.
Okay. To give us some credit, we've had world language for like 3 or 4 years, but. Give us some credit,
We
but-
worked a long time at that, too. Yeah.
Maybe you said you had some suggestions.
Yeah, I'll email them over so that you guys can look at them.
Okay.
And if there's any other edits or you mix something else, just email them so we can.
Yeah, we want to get those disseminated, but
Yeah.
that's timely. Okay. Well, I think when our Meeting's pretty early.
It's gonna be June, 6th.
Yeah.
No,
No.
following week, it's gonna be June 13th.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. That's
Oh, yeah, because this you don't need until.
Next week.
You still have time.
Okay.
I was making sure we didn't do that.
Yeah, it's not like one with like.
So that includes, and you said the same thing for goals,
Yeah, for our,
for our goals, okay? Part of those years, you don't make it.
I know, I try not to make them too controversial.
We'll recircle together, okay, got that.
Just so you know, our next meeting is actually, it's graduation, so I won't be here because that's not graduating.
Well, you won't be here.
You were just, yeah, finagle or something, I don't know.
No, the rest of us all have to be here.
I don't know.
Okay.
You do.
And that's Circle's graduation too also, isn't it?
We think, right?
I think they're the same night.
June 13th.
They're both the 13th.
Grizzled, I don't know when
I
theirs
think
is.
they're-
Okay.
I think I'm fairly.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened. I'm
Why?
telling you, I gotta look it up. Because.
Okay.
I think I'm right.
Maybe we should have our meeting on June 6th.
No, that's like the, like that's the week, but what, everybody.
You can do it 2 weeks after.
Oh my God. What?
Think about that.
I'm like the biggest bug of my heart.
Grizzled is the 13th. Amy, Amy, Griswold is the 13th as well.
It is,
She
right?
looked it up, yeah.
So we can be talking about this second, is that after the referendum? For our next meeting, should we?
You want the later?
27th?
meetings, The 27th?
No, that's.
You want to do the
like,
first week of June?
if the budget goes down, the
Yeah.
27th is hard for us. By then,
Yeah.
we're a month out,
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
you know. I could do
So
the
you want
second.
The 6th. It would be the 6th.
June 6th was D-Day, was the digression from what it here. Good deal.
I think earlier is better than later. And then if we have to have a second one, we can have it on the 27th if we need to, going forward, depending how the budgets go, it might be a great meeting on the 2nd or not, right? I just think the 27th is way too late.
Yeah,
in the
it
month.
is late, because then.
You know, we gotta be putting something else out.
Yeah.
Well, at the 6%, you're gonna have to expect the worst with the referendum. I mean, that's
So that's
kind of a given.
against 6%. But the 6th is all right with me, or whatever day.
I don't know with the town if, because like we have to report it to the town. Like our annual budget, our meetings, it's either gonna be the 2nd or the 4th. I
Well,
don't, are we,
We can change that day 2
Right,
weeks out.
right.
We're way out.
Yeah.
So we should be able to correct it.
We'll let you know if it's changed to the 6th, or we might, and then this will be a further discussion, we'll talk about it when the upcoming meetings, part of the agenda happens. But,
Oh,
like summer stuff, so
oh, no, okay, when are we talking about it?
upcoming meetings.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
that's fine, and it's
we
just,
gotta decide tonight.
we do, it's just, there's other
That's fine,
things to think about too, that you focus on for, planning.
that's fine.
Okay, so, right, so we're moving on to policy 5131, spot 91, safe school climate plan. This is the second reading. Seems like a lot of state updates to former bullying policies. So. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to peruse the whole thing.
I think we were all waiting for your hand thoughts.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yes, I learned.
Sure, 30.
It was just like, both.
Yeah, there's people who got bullying, there's bullying too, okay? Just don't- the two of you. Like this is which part of the- just in general.
you can table it for a third if you want, to give you time, because it's a big policy.
Yeah, I said to Megan that
This is much more proactive and positive approach.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a negative connotation like the old, across Connecticut, willing to climate policy plan. Now it's just school climate, talk about certain practices, challenging behavior, things like that. I went through it earlier and then again tonight. There's nothing in it that significantly what we wouldn't, normally do or wasn't written. A lot of it seems like wording, but it's definitely more.
Yeah, it's just appointments of-
I feel like it's more, proactive or positive in the wording than the other
That-
plan that they
that
have
was-
put out.
And so you guys have to start doing a survey.
Yeah, a biannual survey. We did a survey this past fall, and then our next survey will be out in May. And
Now,
then,
will the state send you the survey you do, or you?
Kathy, you're asking a lot of them.
You-
We have to come up with our own
Yes.
survey.
Yes, of course.
We have done, so. And remember the survey piece, the other policy
Yeah.
that we went over, you can only survey students on so that's a little tricky in surveying students as well.
This says that they, shall have the responsibility to opt out,
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Who makes up the school climate committee? Like, do you have a school climate committee?
Yeah.
Who's on that?
A bunch of people.
Bunch of people, like each,
Yes,
each.
a lot of representatives, myself,
Yeah,
there's probably like 8 or 9 people.
that's the guidance, of
Yes.
course.
My nurse.
Nurse,
yeah.
right.
I think from lower school, middle.
Okay.
Is there somebody from the board on it? Me, I'm going to find somebody. No,
I think so. I don't think so. 'Cause,
probably,
yeah,
this is it.
maybe. Yeah, I can't remember. We do meet more often though. This says twice a year. We actually meet quarterly.
Oh, good.
So we meet 4
Yeah.
times a year.
Okay.
So we use a lot of
Okay.
PD days for it.
You could be on.
Are you inviting families of the students?
Yeah, that was saying like some things that were like.
So the private committee has to consist of family and students enrolled at the school, 2 members of the school community.
We have a lot of people on it. I don't know if anybody.
I'm curious.
I don't know if we do. I don't, yeah, I think I have to look back in my.
Well, that's new. It looks like that's.
But that'll say
the
that's new, because I'm
That's
like, I
new.
don't think we.
Right, that's why I was like,
Yeah.
why don't we just, we'll table up our third reading,
Yeah,
just to
okay,
make fine tune the particulars that aren't, if we don't feel like that's something we need in our. As long as, it's good to have the conversation that we are doing, kind of how comfortable we are with the plan of what kind of state mandated versus what we can maybe,
We want our
more
own.
custom. I think it's, obviously it's super important work, I think that obviously,
One of the key components is that by 2025, July 1, 2025, we have to re-implement, we had done restorative practices for a while in our building.
I wanted to know what that was.
So, go ahead.
No, no.
You're doing all that, go ahead.
No, it's, go ahead. I'll piggyback with this.
That is utilizing practices that encourage like reconciliation between kids, who are at odds, for example. Teaching kids to be able to like function with other kids who they might like or not like, etc. Repairing those relationships between teacher and student, like when those things happen, or parent and student, or parent and teacher, and it's not just about kids, it's about employees also.
It's before it's trying to curb, going straight to discipline.
Right.
It's trying to like figure out where the breakdown is, how we repair and restore. Is there a place to?
I mean, when I was reading, it was also kind of inferring, obviously, truancy stuff too. I mean, is this just a ball of wax that's just, like restoring school attendance,
I think there's
and
lots under this.
home practices
No.
and things like that, and it's all very important, it's just,
There's a specific, like there's a practice, like framework that you can get trained on.
It seemed pretty specific in this, but I just.
Certain questions you ask,
Give a story circle. Sometimes if you wanna really.
I think we need to limit in the whole.
Yeah.
Children.
Yeah.
Structured circles.
I did that on my own.
You are leading today, their story circle. Okay, well, that's helpful. Are we all in agreement that we just kind of?
Yes, yeah.
Fine tune it a little bit, okay. That sounds good. I think the more like I'm all for it, that's just my personal belief and just what I want is just to have. Kids be happy and appreciate one another, you know, differences, who they are, that they learn differently, that they are different. But respect each other, and like, I feel like the old school bullying just never goes away, like, you know, and I think it's like, this is a nice framework to make sure that we keep it that way, but like, what kind of.
And
You know.
restorative, it doesn't mean that there's no discipline.
Right, it's sports.
So there is discipline, but restorative also means that once you've done that discipline, how are you moving on from X, Y, and Z that's happened? But there's still a discipline component.
If you keep seeing.
Yeah, right. And even at the very like, very basic level of kindness matters is a very important factor from kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, you know.
And so this fits in with our MTS. That's why that's all happening. This one
But teaching them is small.
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
just feel like being a small school, we can use it to our advantage to help people learn how to get along with almost anybody in the workplace. They were the group of students for a number of years. Some you may like, some you may not, and you can turn that into an advantage, teaching them how.
So there's a way to dislike someone,
Yeah,
right?
there's
a
yeah,
way
Or
that-
if you don't get a lot of them, you can still.
Yeah.
be
But
civil.
the smallness is the advantage, yes. In that. You want to get along with people you don't necessarily like, you won't like everybody you work with, do you?
Well, you should be going on and maybe.
Okay. All right, we're moving right along to budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
The fun part.
Yes. So we can get them wrapped up and.
Budget. Could you come up? Here, these are for the board. Can you give one to Amy and Lloyd and then give them out to the other people? And the board member get a color copy of the budget to help with reading it, so. Everybody else gets black and white.
You got one?
So we're moving along. The attached budget represents a budget of $7,301,475. That's an increase of 3.49% or $246,141 over this year's budget. The second paragraph, I described some of the things that were happening within the budget. I really wanted you to look at the Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen budget history. In 2017-18, the Board of Ed share of the budget was 80.75. But next year, it's going to be 73.44. So the town budget portion has been rising and the Board of Ed has been dropping. The next section is the monies that we have returned to the town, and of course, 22-23, we returned 109,000. So far this year, we've returned 91,329. The school readiness with the grant, we're required to reference the school readiness grant in our annual budget proposal. There's a line item there. Okay, page 2, multi-year approved budget and expenditure comparisons. As you noticed, we basically had 5 budgets in a row. And then, in 22-23, we had a $65,000 increase last year. Well, this year we had a $200,000 increase. That did not raise the mill. So the Board of Education budget for the last 7 years has not raised the mill rate in this town. And then, of course, we're dealing with the 246. So we'll have to see what happens with that. As I said, this year's budget, we should be on time, in budget, closing it out. And I'll be talking the next meeting about some of the things that we might be able to do with that as we look at remaining balances. You can read the consideration for annual budget, academic achievement in Voluntown. I'm sorry, I still need to work on the 21, 22, and 23 with the result of that. That each year takes a considerable amount of time to put together with comparisons. Okay, here we go. Page 3 is enrollment per pupil cost. And I've just been running things. Of course, the state winds up giving us a very high per pupil cost. But I always like to break it down into the local property taxpayer. What is their portion of the budget? Because the other portions we get from grants and other types of things. And yes, last year there was an increase, and this year we'll have to see what happens with determination. Designated high schools you're familiar with, regular ed tuitions, NFA 15,181, Griswold's supposed to be 15,371. I have to check that. I'll have to check that number. It's not 13. And then North Stonington is 12,000. Killingly Egg is 7,100. Marine Science Magnet School is 6,400. We have no students at QMC. Norwich Tech, Ellis Tech are free. And then education cost sharing. I've already explained that once. It's on the board, and I think I've talked about it every board meeting. The next page is the ECS. We've already gone over it. And then special education excess cost. What a roller coaster ride. 29,000, 31, 48, 59, 45. Last year was 71. This year we received 79,000 so far. And then multi-year cost of special education. And this has been changing, but basically, you know, you can look, 2021, it was 29% of the budget, 21, 22, 31.74, 22, 23 was 29.28%. This year it was 29%, and projected for next year is 29.63. So that gives you an idea of you know, some of the things. And I want you to know, ever since I've been here, we've budgeted full costs for special ed. Some towns say, oh, we'll factor in the excess cost reimbursement. My philosophy is give it to the town, because we're not going to get the money in the grant. And I can remember I told the story before. One year when I was acting superintendent, they changed the formula in March, and I had to find $440,000. Fortunately, it was a $28 million budget, so I had some flexibility. Voluntown list full cost, I talked about that. Projected tuition for special ed students, NFA, is 21,720 next year. Their Thrive is 48,509. Griswold, their special ed resource room is 27,521. And when we get into the budget, I'll talk about additional services for paraprofessionals. Their alternative school is 49,704. Transition Academy, 27,500. North Stonington, 21,720. And then East Pond, we have Northeast Regional. And the tuition was $72,879. But at the beginning of this year, we brought back one of those students. That's the tuition that we saved. But the staff sitting there made accommodations to handle them at Voluntown Elementary School. And whenever we can, and philosophically, I will not have a separate special ed program. I want a regular ed connections all the time, and our staff helps the children within the context of the regular ed program. And we get a lot of growth gradients. That's why we started the preschool program many years ago. $52,000 outplacement, $20,000 for transportation, OT, PT. We were spending $102,000 for one student. We hired a teacher for, what was it, 50,000? We saved 52,000 in the budget. And quite frankly, I think we did a better job. Okay, heating oil tank replacements. We had 112,000 that we got back from the state. We did asbestos abatement last summer. We're doing it again now. We'll have a little bit of a balance left over, but that has helped us meet some of the requirements of asbestos abatement. Transportation, I have another report that I wanted you to review, and let's see. And is Debbie Lee there again?
No man's gate. That's right.
Okay. And, this is something, this has changed a little bit. Is there enough for everybody, or, we need one more, Emily, thank you. No, they all have it, but Chris needs one.
I'm good.
Oh, you got it, okay. Look, this is where we are with, with transportation, 2005, 2006. That's the year I arrived. But you can see some of the numbers, and then, we went for a few years, and then you got to 2010, 11. I think we did purchase some new buses, and the overall cost, because of repairs, went down. And then you can see that in 2016, 2017, we went out to bid for buses. We had a $75,000 down payment that we made. We wound up getting trade-ins for our buses, and we took out a lease purchase for $440,000. And we wound up paying that off in 3 years. But you can see that it went down a little bit. That's after the lease purchase. And then things started to rise a little bit. 2021 was the year after COVID, and a lot of people were, driving kids to school and stuff. And then 21, 22, we had a little bit of a rise, and then the buses are 9 years old. So, what happened is our repairs increased, and we had that foolish additive to the bus that required changing some things. And then the back roads of Voluntown do a job on tires and wheel rims. So we had some expenses with that. But the budget proposal for next year for transportation is $643,875 as of today, and that includes the purchase of the van. Okay, so that's where we are with that. Now, let's see, transportation, we went over capital improvement, we went over building projects. I went through some of the things with COVID relief. I might revise that a little bit, make it a little tighter. Security, budget development is an ongoing thing. Okay, next report is health insurance. And I think you've seen this report before. So there's the health insurance one. 4, 5. I don't have an extra copy of this, but the thing is that for the budget for next year, for the budget proposal that I'm gonna give you, we're saving. It's $16,911 less than this year. And when I go to principals meetings, they just can't believe this. From last year to this year, the budget increased $12,808. And then we had savings in the previous year, 61,000, 23, 10,000, 50, 239, and 20,000. Now, we budget for the staff that we know is here right now. And then over the next few months, there could be retirements, resignation. We do some hiring. Sometimes somebody leaves, but we've overall seen some, savings, within the budget. And, there's been some modest increases. And then it ends with the town meeting, the hearing on the 21st. We'll be in the gym for that. And then the referendum is Tuesday, the 18th. This is the descriptor that's going out, with the budget. Now, I want to get into the colored sheets so that we can look at some of the things that are happening in this. And there's some interesting stories that are developing with this. Oh, Megan, here, this is the information from the Transportation Committee meeting. I wanted you to have the story about what happened with our transportation.
One thing.
So budget,
I just wanted to say, if anybody's interested, it came up at transportation meeting about electric buses going forward. Our town has got set up infrastructure wise, and because of all these back routes we have, they would not be appropriate when we're looking forward, going forward for electric buses. You may have said we wouldn't, they're not good at, they're good in cities, with stop go. They would not be good in volunteer, and we don't have the infrastructure, even if we right now.
Right now, yeah.
So they're not an option as we're going forward, looking at more buses in the next couple of years.
so then the budget lines itself, regular education, page 1, went up 1.61%. As you can see, the teachers, that first line went up $52,886, but that includes adding a Spanish teacher. And then, there's other things that happen with salary. When we get to speech and language, you'll see that there's a $70,907 savings there, because rather than having 1.8 teachers, we're gonna have 1.0. And we've got a schedule, to meet the needs, yeah.
We didn't hire a brand, we just replaced the teacher. We replaced the French teacher with a Spanish teacher. We didn't add a whole new
No,
position
we
for
didn't have
Spanish.
any French teacher this year. So
We
he
had a
wasn't in
Spanish
this year's
teacher.
budget.
Right,
We didn't have
Part-time.
any teacher of this language in the budget.
And we had a part-time teacher.
French teacher.
We had a part-time teacher for like 15,000 a year, and that person has been non-renewed. So we are hiring a new person coming in, but yes, there was some savings based on that.
Chris, the French teacher resigned last June.
He
Did not-
wasn't in
Did
this
not
budget.
teach with us this year.
Last year we couldn't find a teacher.
We had the part-time Spanish. I was thinking,
Yes, we put in a part-time as a temporary placeholder.
I'm glad we have the full-time.
And somebody who's familiar with town and not looking to move on and wants to be involved in town.
And as you can see, overall tuition, we had a $21,000 increase, from 1,036,000 to 1,057,000, but down below the tuition for the rest, we saved 36,000, so those accounts for the tuition are actually a minus $15,270. Okay, certified salary special ed went up 3.29%. As you can see, we have our certified teachers on the 111 account, and then the non-certified wages. That account went from 215,046. We had a teacher, we had a para retire, and we made some adjustments when people left. So the budget for next year proposal is 181,082. We still have the same number of paras, but we wound up, well, we dropped one, but we wound up being able to cover all of the things that had to be done. Line 320, we budgeted $66,040 this year. And next year, that's up to $180,490. And what's happening is we found that when students are moving on to high school, and we're providing all of these services here at BES by our special ed staff, but then they move on to high school and the high school requirements have increased. We have more students needing counseling, OT, PT, and also para support. So that number has significantly increased and is being implemented as per PPT and individual education programs because we provide students if they need the services. And if they don't get the services, then the state will get in touch with us and say you're out of compliance with the guidelines of special education.
And on that, or last year,
What we actually spent this year.
or last year. That line item,
The line item, if you look, we had, the actual or, right in the, it really did change. And, I mean, Megan, it was just so significant. And, I've been having other superintendents call me and say, Adam, what's happening with the special ed
so
services?
where's the biggest chunk of that, that's your.
The biggest chunk is para support.
At the high school?
At the high school, purchase services.
But so NFA was talking about changing that setup.
Yes,
correct?
NFA did make a change with that, and we worked with that. Last year, well, this year, we have a para, one of our own, that we send to NFA. That person is coming back,
Right,
and that's, but, yes, and there was an increase in services at Griswold High School.
so the high schools are coming back and saying that they need basically almost 4 times as much money to set.
We didn't put enough money in for this year's budget.
Right, but the 2022 to 23 actual was 43,000, so.
Oh, no, it's in deficit. Right now, that budget is in such a great deficit, Megan.
Well,
It was,
22 was 43,000, right?
yeah, it's significant.
And you won't necessarily know the 2023 to 24 actual, right?
Yeah, it's 48,000 in deficit right now.
After the budget is 66,000.
Yeah, we're like 108.
Yeah, so that's what we have.
Yeah, that's added to the 66.
Right.
So,
It's 40,000 deficit. on top
yes,
of the 60.
so when we do the budget, you'll see an actual,
Right.
in future
Correct.
budgets. But this is probably the greatest challenge we've had this year. And I've had to look at, and if we have a need that we have to pay for, then I encumber money from other accounts.
Right. I guess I don't know, if we have contracts with these high schools, right? So.
And they can the contracts can put as much as they want in the BOE.
Right, but we have existing, I guess, maybe we can talk a little bit more about that when we talk
Well,
about the high school. contract,
Megan,
but-
Because we're still waiting for the last quarter, I read the checks, you
Yeah,
know.
you're,
they don't come in
you're
for
bringing
the-
up something that's very interesting, because when we talked to the contract with Griswold, the town, yeah, the town is the one that, you know, sets the, contract, and the school district participates in the
Right.
meeting, so it's worth follow through.
Yeah, I think we should have our attorney look at our
You know,
contract.
we need to,
Because I'm sure we have to pay additional, if a student needs above and beyond support, I know that there are financial implications of that. But that's not,
But the
To
new
me, that's not
contract was in 26, and the end date is going
but
to
what I'm
come
saying is
to.
we already have contracts in place, so we
Well, that's
shouldn't be
just-
getting an extra.
That's just
120.
tuition. That's just tuition.
Understood, but I just am thinking that a town shouldn't have to worry about a fourfold increase from year over year without either having something in the contract that indicates that, or,
It
right,
just talks
so-
about extra service.
I don't know how you.
Yeah, Megan, what it is that we pay a tuition, we pay a special education fee.
yeah, and we pay additional for services.
But if the student needs any related service, they have a rate that they charge. One of the related services is para support. And sometimes we don't know till we get to the transition meeting as to what in their program, where they're going to provide the support. It's simple if a student is very disabled and needs an entire one-to-one person. That's, the bill for that is over 80,000. But if a student needs two people in his math class or two people in the social studies class, then there's a charge for each of those two services.
Right.
We're accounting for them better this year, getting ready for the next year. My office didn't account for them as well as we should have.
Okay, so it was.
The bill would come in the middle of the year. Adam would work to pay the bill. What my office didn't do was to put together a speculation as to how that's gonna impact next year. We put that practice into place.
Okay.
That's why we see the big bump in this budget. Following years, there won't be a big bump because we made a change in how we put things together, how we keep track of things better. So the dollar amount we actually spent is probably very close to the number you're looking at. It just, the bill came in and it wasn't adequately budgeted for. Not Adam's fault, just the system in my office wasn't geared up as well as it should have been. Now, we've revised all of that. We don't just tell them what the kid's gonna need, we have to be very specific, so we get a list of all of the OT costs for Griswold by kid, all of the counseling costs by kid, the paraprofessional costs by kid. We had a meeting this week, and something unexpected happened, I had to revise what we sent them already, so. To some degree, it is until the child walks in the door, but, you know, I
so
I think
Megan,
that
that
responsibility in my
number
office
represents
given
this
some-
moment in time, and yesterday I wound up having to go through the whole budget because I got some additional costs for, you know, help, and that line item went up to 180. But remember earlier, we also had a new student coming in with a $50,000 tuition. That's in there, but the very next day, I got a student who moved out, so I saved 27,000. This budget represents everything we know right now up to date. And then as time goes on, we monitor that. And if I get additional expenses, then yes, I have to go into other accounts, whether it be supplies or something else, and making sure that I encumber the funds to cover that cost. And as I said, this year we got a $48,000 deficit added to the 66,000 that we're spending. So that's something that was somewhat unanticipated.
So you have discussed with them the whole cost sharing if a pair is not necessary
for all classes, the cost sharing where we're only getting charged
Yeah.
for that one.
Greenwald is very good. They,
No,
They give us the
Aaron was
pieces, and
supposed
then
to
if
come
the-
today to talk about.
if the, let's say there's a class for kids with intellectual disabilities. One year, there may only be 2 kids in the class. And so we share 50% of the cost of the para that those kids will need all day. But if the year after, there's 3 kids in the class, and that one para can help all 3, then our bill goes down to a third. And so their director stays on top of making sure that the bills that are presented to us are fair. And we're dedicated to making sure we let Adam's office know as soon as possible what those expectations are going to be.
So
We're doing a better job now, but
Sorry.
the figure you're seeing, some of it is catch up, trying to be better upfront planning than in the past.
So, if the high school principals, people from Bristol are coming over to talk to the board, this is a good topic.
Yeah, I mean, right, so it's either a contract issue or a budget issue, right? So if it's a budgeting issue, then that's obviously on us, right? So.
And, it's gonna require a follow-up meeting. And as I said, when we talk to Griswold, you don't just talk to the superintendent and the board chair, you have to have their selectmen in there, and sometimes the board of finance person. And, you know, there's been some things that, need attention with that.
Well, thank you for the clarity, Lloyd. It's helpful just to know kind of where things have been over the last 2 years. That shows some of that differential, sorry.
Okay, can I move on now to the, page 2, we have, the administration, that's just the cost of, running the program. Social worker is now down to 0 because we are in that we have that $67,000 grant, and a social worker has been very successfully coming over 1 day a week and supporting us, and, that's really worked out well. Very helpful to Amy and, you know, implementing direct services to parents. Guidance services. Okay, I'm gonna take you down on 320. Because the professional education services, we pay for counseling. And there's $11,800 there that was added. Because that's part of the cost for those additional high school services. Oh, did I just mention, we just mentioned 180, add 11,800 to that.
So that counseling is all high school?
And that's paying for the counselor to meet with our students over.
For budgeting, new way they're breaking down loans. Is this a newer way they're breaking down?
No, I always have been, for the, people just in the songs.
We had, okay,
Right, they charge differently than NFA charge.
yeah, okay.
That's the problem. One
Right.
charges one way,
One charges the other, okay, because, yeah. Hoping on some cost saving for the parents that we now own it and.
What about Wheeler? How do they charge us?
It's expensive, Chris.
Encompass in there.
And then, psych services, that's up because of the testing services and testing of students. You know, as you can see, we went up to 72,000 1 year because we were playing catch up with some of the things that happened after COVID. And there is an additional need for testing. Speech and language.
Yeah, that's high school.
Speech and language is down 39%. And as I said earlier, we had a teacher retire. And so what happened is she was full-time and we had a part-time speech and language clinician. She is now running full-time, running the whole program. And we've worked out a schedule that works with that. And okay, here it is again, 320. Contracted services, we went from 5588 to 14,388. That's speech and language services for high school students. And that has been an increase as well. So you add that to the 180. With the OTPT,
Bringing you back, Adam, to the psychological services. Is that somebody you have hired at this school? Or is that?
We try, but then we did,
This is a contract with.
yes, outside,
Services, outside,
we come in and do this. Issues.
so it's not a full-time employee for us, so you're contracted based
It's
on.
contract.
Do you
Assess numbers.
Do you think it'd be costly if we tried to hire somebody where, you know?
Puts in less goals.
Yeah.
So if they're gonna hire a lot more person, you know, have health benefits and everything else.
We used to have Judith, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she retired.
But I wonder if you could, if you could do that, like part-time psychological service, and part-time like guidance, like
Yeah.
try to create a position that looks at guidance and psychological services.
It would have to be a school psychologist.
And they can also provide other things as well besides assessment too, so they could do FBAs, BAPs, counseling, group, individual, consultate, I mean, I don't know.
Yes, originally, when you're thinking back to when we were hiring a counselor.
Yeah, we ended up
It was
hiring
either or.
either or, we didn't
And
get
it
anybody.
didn't make sense.
And well, it's
Which
a big
is
shortage
very
area,
fair.
so we could try again, I'm gonna say probably not, because
Right.
it's such a shortage area.
Erica, that just doesn't include the response, that's outside evaluations.
Yeah,
So, and they can run as high as $4,000.
yes.
Right, but if we bring
Yeah, so,
If we had our,
and this is,
if we had our own employee,
Yeah,
it would be more cost effective.
yes, right.
But finding someone with the kind of
We struggle.
experience and breadth of knowledge that
Mhm.
person
Mhm.
that helps us has,
Mhm.
we'd have to hire somebody with a PhD at the top of the scale.
Oh.
She has a PhD.
Oh, you
She
mean
has a
one,
lot of
the
experience.
one that you have now, that you're hiring?
The person that helps us.
Oh, I'm just about putting it out there, just.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but they have the same quality.
Mhm.
And then you'd be competing with districts that pay so much more
Oh,
than
yeah,
you do.
yeah, yeah.
So if we were lucky enough to find someone, let's say we bring somebody in from Indiana, and they come in and work with us for a year. Once they look around and see they can make 10 grand more or 15 grand more going someplace else.
Mhm.
So it's a crapshoot.
Yeah,
We could maybe save money for a year, but then if we lose that quality of service. I don't know,
it's something to monitor this year, but it's not just, a school psychologist. It's all of the other outside evaluations
like it's like.
lumped into that account. And we would still have to have other professional services. So if we monitor those and deduct those, I'll try to do an analysis to see how much those other services
Adam,
are.
I'd like to make
Um,
one more comment. Also covered by that is neuropsych balance.
Yeah.
Okay, now we usually end up having at least one a year.
Mhm.
There's a neuropsych in
Yeah.
East Con. She does wonderful work.
No.
And her bill is less than 4,000.
Mhm.
And I've had junk come from Glastonbury and it's 5 or 6. So that's a nice resource to have, but you've got a budget for that possibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have one happening in the near future, but we did have one this year, we had one last year.
Mhm.
And the information is great, the kids that are very complicated, but so that's also in the budget.
Okay, yeah.
OTPT, and again, we have high school students that are required with that. We have students coming in who have wheelchair needs. And there has just been an increase in the needs of students. The other thing is, it's improvement of instruction remains the same, instructional staff training remains the same. Library media, we have a certified person in there at part of their salary to help the library media center remain open. Technology remained flat at about 240,000. It was actually a little decrease in that account. And then if we're moving over to Board of Ed, probably the biggest increase there was, the other professional services. That's related to negotiations coming up this year with the certified staff. Superintendents, increase, 2.94, is up about 5,000. Principal's office, 3.52. And we also have fiscal services, 1.82, operation and maintenance, 6.41. And as we go through, you can see that repairs and maintenance, we went from 72,000 to 98,000. And we have had some repairs in the building, and we have to make sure that we stay ahead of those. And as I said, there's a fire panel. We might wind up taking some money out of that for this year, to next year, to pay for this partially,
The disposal services, I know lots of people in town have changed who they do their disposal services through because of the cost. Is that something that we need to look into as well, or is that contracted?
The disposal services, did go up a little bit. I'll have to monitor that cost and see what.
I mean, I'm looking at the original, that's 12,000, so this year has doubled what it was for actual 22-23. This year is twice that.
Val, okay, snow removal. We
Is that what it
had,
is?
we had a contract and everybody couldn't believe the contract. And the snow removal has gone out of sight. And quite frankly, the buses need that, it's all related to snow removal. Okay.
Not waste management over here.
Well,
Sounded like it. Yeah, it is. I thought the same
The
thing.
salaries went down because we could not find a full-time custodian. So we have one full-time and two part-time, and within that, we wound up saving, some money. But we advertised, we tried to find somebody and we just couldn't. So there were some cost savings, with that. Let's see, the others are remaining pretty much the same. I increased electricity just a little bit. And the bottled gas remained the same, fuel oil remained the same, and equipment. And right now, we hope to use some grant funds to get a shed because the town's gonna give us their lawnmower, which works much more efficiently than the John Deere tractor that we have. They have some equipment. And they said, if you want it, we'll give it to you. And of course, we said yes, because it saves Brian Callio a tremendous amount of time. And quite frankly, he does a better job, but it's gasoline. And we can't store that in our garage. And the shed that we have is filled. So we're looking at using some grant money to possibly purchase a new shed and put it out back here and store gasoline. Transportation actually just went up 4%. And as you can see,
Your line 430.
between
Operations and maintenance, 430.
430 repairs and maintenance, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? So you have an increase of, is it 26,000? Cause I see you have the increase in maintenance for transportation, which I know is related to the
Yes.
buses, but I'm trying to figure out the
The
one above.
So the question, figuring out why it went up.
You were going 4:30.
Yes.
Yeah, why it went up, I hope that we can use some of this money for the fire alarm panel. And I'm in hopes that we might be able to carry over some funds from this year's budget if possible. But the thing is, the original fire panel estimate is gonna be 50 or 60,000. And I thought I might be able to combine the repair over two budgets. But Jody did a pretty thorough inspection, the fire marshal. And he said he needs to get somebody in here to see if we need to replace all of the wiring to the classrooms, plus putting in new detectors in every space. And if we do that, then that's gonna be something that we would have to go back to the town for.
Was the town not willing to help out with that cost?
The town
Because-
has been, the town has been very helpful when there's a needy project. Remember, we've never had to go back to the town for an additional allocation. But the thing is that it's like 50 years old and it's failing.
I was gonna say, going forward, we should see if some of this money, not tonight, going forward, that we send over that we get.
And
reimbursed
this is
and
this is the
go
big
to the
question
fund.
to ask. That we have the building committee that's reviewing things. And we had all of these federal funds. Are there some additional grants that are available? And I just saw something today for a possible grant for safety. And maybe, the fire alarm panel might qualify for that. But I had to do something to put us in a negotiation spot with the town. And if we came up with $50,000 and they could match, we have a cooperative effort, to resolve this issue. But I needed to make sure that, we're doing everything we can in the cause of safety. If that fire panel breaks, then I'm gonna have to go through the budget and find the money to make an emergency repair because we can't be in the school. And we've made repairs and we've made repairs.
And you've had several fire drills, like where it's going off at all times, that's what caused the original accident. Children remind me of that all the time. Yeah.
And so the town has known about this, but all of a sudden, we have the generators, we have the fire panel. And these are things that just cropped up because the repairs that worked in the past aren't working. Well, they're working, but they're not lasting.
Like HVAC, like indoor air quality into fire alarm, something, no. Make the grant just all cover it.
I think the wiring might have to go along.
The wire, because that has to help indoor air quality.
If we could have a line item in the town budget, capital, school,
Right,
and we could put all this grant money we return to the town into that, we wouldn't have
Yeah.
to be looking for money for things. I don't know if that can be done, but if we're giving 90, 100,000 every year, we have 100,000 for repairs. Like you said, we have 50,
So we're
60.
telling townspeople that money is going to the school and going to education.
Yes,
I have been asked.
so I don't know if that could be set
I
up.
know we have had, the town has given us more recently when we've asked.
Yeah, and I think Tracy was, recently said, but she said that it should put it on the plan, like just make sure it's on their capital improvement plan. Just keep it on ours, keep it on theirs, we're gonna have to figure out a way, cause it's gonna be an emergency no matter what.
What you're experiencing,
We
sure.
can't be doing 100,000 in capital improvements every year out of the budget that we don't want to be increasing.
And we return like
Yeah.
90 to 100.
And if that money could go directly into that, we'd be
That we have an expenditure on the budget.
budget, so we have to return any tuition to the family like that.
I feel like you're going there and begging for your money back.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, So if the line item was there where we could use that.
Yeah.
The big things that would be like,
Instead
you know,
of,
we're begging you guys to give it back.
instead of capital improvement, vehicle improvement, school, use another item.
Please remember that, we got 60 plus, reimbursement, for the roof, for the oil tank. You know, and for other projects that we've done, the boilers, you know, that we've done over the years. And there's always that route to, ask for a, you know, a state program. You know, and that goes through the town.
Yeah.
For the HVAC, for the gym, and there are a couple of other things.
But we have some big projects, like that screen, you're talking about electric, we're talking about rewiring half the building for these filing. That's gonna be.
Yeah, but the,
And then moving into
gym,
transportation, the buses, like, I mean, those are breaking down, so we have an actual cost, you know, there's $50,000 worth of.
Maybe some of that could be moved to the town responsibility, not all the Board of Ed. Because in most towns, the Board of Ed is not funding buses.
well, the town has been very helpful, you
Yeah.
know, and,
Be a little bit careful with
Yeah.
that though, because we do like having the control over heat and that
Yeah.
here.
But.
Can I just,
okay, transportation.
I just have a main question. The money that we return to the town, does the Board of Finance use that money to offset the tax increase? Do they count that the revenue for the next year? Or does it just sit someplace in case they need it?
I believe sometimes, but sometimes it goes in that.
I think if
We
we
have
if we
over
tell them that we have,
something
we're,
coming.
like, if we get permission, I think that's how it worked with the air conditioner, with the oil tank. We told them ahead of time, we would like to use it, they approved it. I think they had to have their auditor approve it,
Right.
if I remember correctly, and then that money was just set aside for.
And then some of it goes in, we have.
We can
like
carry over.
10% set aside. And sometimes that takes up to like 12-14%. With the phone. It goes different.
Undesignated fund.
Undesignated fund. I think some years it goes one place, and Megan's correct on. Like with the HVAC, it will stay set aside. for the
But I
following
see
year.
that as separate special grant thing.
Yeah.
I'm talking more like the listed item sent down. He reports and sending down.
They go a variety of places.
So I think your point is to have the town set up a fund that money goes into as a continuing capital improvement resource.
That's what I wasn't.
Look, we're going over remaining balances for this year. And we, in the past, have carried over money for a special project. And you can carry over up to 2% of your budget for a designated project. And that's why I have Jody and Brian working on trying to give us an estimate on this fire panel. Because I put some additional money in next year's budget, and if we have to carry over some money for helping with replacing the fire panel, but if I get down and I don't have enough, then that's when I say to the town, look, we've carried over, you know, money and we've combined money with our budget, but we still have a shortfall. Could you help us with this? In the meantime, looking for grants and looking to see what's available, because we just spent $920,000 on grants, and most of that went for building improvements. So there's a process for that, but we can't solve it tonight in one meeting. It's gonna have to take place over time so that we can look at our remaining balances. But there are mechanisms to do this, and as I said, we can always try to go and form a building committee, and then you write an RFP for an architect. And the architect develops the whole thing and comes up with a price, but that usually is like a 2-year process from start to finish. Unless you have an emergency, and the state may help out with a legitimate building project. And then it's not a full 60% reimbursement. It's a reimbursement for what they determine as eligible expenses. So, you know, this is what happens. So, you know, we did the roofing project and the bid was 900,000, and I think the town had to spend 400 and something thousand, so we got a substantial reimbursement for that. But that's in the mix, and that's part of the review.
Adam, can I ask one question? Nobody's shooting me right now. Especially. I feel like a lot of this budget, our hands are tied. Because a lot of it feels like is increases from high school. And I'd be interested to see kind of, and you know, if you give me a list, I'll separate it for everybody. But what are the things that are for pre-K to 8? And then what's our list of expenditures that are high school based, where our hands are tied in the budget? And we're not allowed to change these numbers. Because I think like when we're looking at this and we're looking at like things that we can move around or cut or lower this percentage. You know, I think that every time I look at one and I'm like, ooh, that's a big number, and it's outsourced high school. And then I look at it, I'm like, ooh, that's a big number, that's support high school. And I don't know what that separator is. Like, I don't know what's in one category and what's in the other category, where our hands are tied here. We have no say in it. Supposedly, according to our contracts, that's the amount that we're supposed to be paying. And then this is our operating budget for our, you know, our students here. And kind of be able to draw that distinction between the two, where
It's in the function object report. It's what I would there, you go line by line. And-
Yeah.
right, but I'm just looking at like.
I think our biggest right now is the van purchase and the broken buses and maintenance.
It is, but it's $180,000 on light item, I can't even read anymore, 320. That's an outsourced to high school.
No, you're right, you're right, I was like saying,
In the
Right.
monthly report, it tells you though, you can pull it out of that.
But I think.
Right, but that's every single month. Now if you're looking at a big budget.
There would be annually, you would wanna see.
Annually, I'm just.
I mean,
curious
because
how much
there
we are in
must be ways to enforce it.
right,
Or is it?
or even, I mean, like, you know, for somebody who knows each of these line items, like what each line item goes through, right? 'Cause we're asking kind of like, what is this line item? Oh, that goes to high school this, or that goes to high school that. I don't know what those line items are. And kind of what that separator is. Cause I feel like as much as we wanna crunch numbers and do this budget, that I feel very handcuffed by. What the high school is saying, and I just, being able to see that distinction, I think would be helpful.
I think it's the high school, and then the other thing I look at is what are the things that you just have to do in order to keep the school functioning and open, so this is where like the fire panel and the generator and some of these other things come
Right.
in, where it is a hit and it is an increase to the budget, but it is not anything that you can avoid. And so I also think, and I think what you're asking for is how do we separate some of this budget into where are the places where we can have impact or influence over where we allocate money, and what are the things that just, no matter what, will be a rate increase, and try and give some separation. Right? Cause I know, like, I look at most of the budget and I think we need a new handicap van, we need to spend money. We need to support special ed, we need to spend the money there. We need a new fire panel, we're gonna have to spend the money, so yes, it's an increase in the budget from last year, but it's not.
Yeah, I think we're saying high school's ambiguous, what happens, the decision of how we support high school students is sort of a little bit ambiguous. And we don't. really
Right, but I mean,
know
even
how
in
those
this budget,
costs are
what
getting
goes in
allocated.
what goes in what
A little
bucket.
bit more transparency, particularly among the outsource, right? I think that's really what it comes down to. Because, you know, to your guys' point, like, you know, without seeing that total up, right, if then you don't think to ask the question, like, does it make sense to have our own school psychologist, right? Because everything's kind of separated out and some of it goes to high school outplays and some of it's here, right? So I think she's just saying like, if we really want to be able to see where we're kind of.
We'll have to have a budget, what about, because I do the checks every week, you'd have to have a budget with like 15 different things under every.
Yeah.
But I think Darlena is inputting all of this stuff, that's
Crystal
what she gets,
does it.
right, or Crystal, that's how they get this report, so I'm sure they have the
Well,
ability
they
to
have to
respond.
pull out the-
Correct,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
That report is very difficult to read, scent and landscape, when you get 20
Mhm.
pages of it to try to, which I do look at, but it's quite annoying to
Mhm.
figure out each line by line. I think a readout once a year is an onerous request.
Right, you had mentioned
Yeah,
the
Something to take
increase, right, the $26,000 check you signed for the maintenance on the buses. We wouldn't, looking at these month to month, we wouldn't, the rest of us wouldn't have even necessarily noticed that trending upwards had you not said something, right? So. And then it starts the conversation of like, okay, are we looking at new buses in the next year or two, right? So we're missing, I think, looking at it this way, development, we're missing a lot of the picture and a lot of the color around it.
Mhm.
so you want more categories.
I don't know, I just agree with her.
Honestly, everything that goes to Voluntown school that has to do with education is blue, and everything that goes to Voluntown school that's like
Well, there's,
transportation, infrastructure, whatever is green, and everything that goes to high school is red, like,
no,
just.
transportation goes to all, everything, special ed,
Well,
regular ed.
transportation, yeah, right,
Yeah.
I get that, yeah.
Loads of
you're
things
correct.
are like that.
I'm talking about like special services and tuition for high schools
It
and,
broke out tuitions, broke out. The tuitions.
right, but that
are-
other stuff is what my point is. The other stuff is, and it's all under,
No, they have to make a lot more categories, or they could, I'm sure, add categories.
Whoever's-
So under professional pay and fiscal services, under professional services, you want it all broke out, grade school OT, high school OT, special ed OT. Special.
well,
ed
he just
PT.
said that, at that line 320 is an outsourced high school. The increase from 66,000 to 180,000 is primarily outsourced high school. So I would say throw that 320 into the mix of high school so that I know that that's where it's going to. Or whatever line item is going to parent court at high school. I'm just trying to separate it a little bit so that I can see where our
You'll have
contracts
to
are
set and
obviously.
You'll have to sit and talk with Crystal and
Yeah.
tell her what you want, because you're talking about hundreds of extra categories, hundreds, literally.
She has all that information already and she keys it in. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
compiling it for us so we can see it. Yeah,
You got, somebody has to sit and talk with her what you want now. You could do it if you sit and tell her
Yeah.
what you need is important to you.
I value the interest in it, and I
Yeah.
think that it's a good point, I just also value the work that Adam does, like,
Yeah,
every, and he knows this like by heart, so we have every chance
Yeah.
to ask him, what is this number, and we
Yeah.
go over it, we have been for 4 meetings now.
So,
But so maybe we don't need it in this big category, but for
It's like
benefits of the
that
budget
dollar amount.
process.
Total, very total.
And it might just be like a services report that we do as a preliminary budget report, just so that we know, and it's more clear to us where things are going. Especially it's helpful with our discussion with NFA and our contract position, so. I think
that's how it changed completely in the new budget.
Mhm.
They're not gonna charge for OTPT,
Right.
para special.
But seeing it like this would be much clearer.
Yeah.
In this,
It's all gonna be in the NFA budget.
I wouldn't want to change the budget format because I like going over history. What I would be able to do is to look at the expenditures for high school and just give the board an indicator of the range of that. And please remember that we have 29 students next year going to the tech schools and there's no tuition.
No, there's no.
So, you know, there are some things that are happening, that are benefiting for us. And we did add Wheeler, and there's 15 students going there next year.
That's
And
fantastic.
their tuition is less, and their special ed services, they do them within the context of the special ed resource room and their classes. And the thing is, we were hit with some needy students moving up into high school, and the requirements for services increased. And at this point in time, this is what the expenditure would be. So I think there might be a way to just put that in perspective. But I wouldn't change the budget format because there's some history with that. But I might be able to pull out some of the high school expenditures.
Could be a separate report.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, how it was going towards high school.
Mhm.
Tim probably has a lot of it in his binder right now, it's not ready for it.
So are you done with the?
Last page is special ed transportation, it's up 103%. That is the van. And I just want to let you know, the transportation committee meeting will be in September, and they will be reviewing either a bus replacement program or another lease purchase with doing that. But if we have that amount of money in the 730 account, then that helps us have a baseline to plan for the future. Food services is about the same amount. Extracurricular, very valuable program. Community service is the 7,000. And then the building improvements, construction, usually there's a line in there if you want to carry over some money. But I may come to the board in June and say, you know, we have some money, I want to send it to the town and say, we would like to use this money and carry it over. And they've always said yes, they've always approved it. So there could be some flexibility. One of the things that I have to mention though is transportation. And right now, we're just holding our own because we're down 2 bus drivers and a van driver. We have one bus driver applicant we're reviewing and 1 van driver, but we're still down, and I anticipate a retirement of a bus driver in November, December. So we have to also review what we're doing with that. And the other thing is, do we move to diesel engines or gasoline? Some people may want to review electric. I'm not sure how that would pan with some of the unanticipated costs with that. But the transportation committee meeting, we'll be reviewing all of them and making decisions and recommendations.
It also is for gas leader will be a major problem because we have no storage facility.
So we have a budget hearing on May 21st, 7 p.m. in the VES gym. The board has to, take a vote right now. Okay, there's some numbers we might want to look at a little bit, but the thing is that, the budget increase is down from my last proposal, and it is at 3.49%. I do know that on Monday I attended a meeting with about 20 superintendents, and they looked at me, and I think I had the lowest number of all the budget proposals for next year. But of course, that's just trending with what's happening out there in the region and in the area. But I know that we want to be independent, but people look at me and they say, how are you doing that? And there's some things that are very positive about what we've accomplished. And we have some challenges that we just have to work on, and I think plans of action usually develop from that.
We do need a motion to there's no, well, we can still have discussion, but a motion to approve the 5/9/24 budget proposal for 2024-25 at its current number of $7,300,001,475.
You did?
The emotions.
Yep.
Sarah, and
Kathy.
then. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
2 opposed,
I'll be.
3,
Okay. Motion passes. 4-3, 4 yeses, 3 noes.
okay.
All right. Moving along. Let's see what happens with the,
We're
No,
sending,
the town.
3 non-renew, we're sending 3 non-renewals and 3 non-tenured teachers, as we know.
I do have it, you just go ahead with the motions, correct? Just go ahead with the motions, correct? Okay, so reviewing the status of the recent non-renewals of non-tenured teachers, we have 3 motions.
I have a brief discussion on this. As you know, I always abstain every year when this comes up. I have through my terms. I think this is ridiculous that we put these people through this and mess with their lives like this every single year. And I say that every year, and it's just, it's an archaic system and it needs to end.
Noted.
The choice was we could renew them all, but then if we have a big, budget.
Then we
or
ran
whatever,
on. And this is just ruthless.
You have just renewed them. You can't just. We've been, I agree with you, it's a crazy system. But
Okay, we need a motion to rescind motion 23 from the 3/14/24 Board of Ed meeting. The non-renewal of Rachel Sahu's contract as a non-tenured teacher. That sounds a lot of non-name, but we are
Bringing her back.
rescinding what we did.
all right,
Yes.
bring it back.
You're bringing this
Okay.
non-renewal.
Yes,
Okay, so who was that?
Me.
Kathy,
Kathy.
The pink slip is gone.
All right, all in favor?
I,
Any opposed?
Abstain.
1 abstained.
you don't want her back?
You can mark me for the rest of it.
This is bringing her back,
I know.
but you, okay, yep, that's fine,
It's just,
gotcha.
A motion to rescind motion 24 from the 3/14/24 Board of Ed meeting of the non-renewal of Sarah Seiferd's contract as a non-tenured teacher.
Okay.
Second. Non-renewal. Okay, so Kathy and Sarah Thompson, all in favor?
Question, how do we? Like, how do we rescind it without knowing the budget is going to be approved?
Well, how do we chop out other stuff?
Okay, so, okay.
Or you choose, or you choose
Not to
your,
take teacher.
right, or you're choosing your process of.
We're choosing the teachers over other stuff.
Right.
the reality is the teachers aren't going anywhere because without the teachers, we don't have the school. This is just a ridiculous archaic thing and. My
Or
God,
you
and every
choose
year to put them
to
through
make
this is horrifying.
So we're saying, like, with these votes, we're really saying we're prioritizing the teachers over the other. stuff.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Okay,
God will set budget, and that's what our check balls.
okay, so in favor?
Aye.
1 abstained.
Got it.
Motion passes. Okay, a motion to rescind motion to number 25 from the 3/14/24 Board of Ed meeting for the non-renewal of Julia Lavin's contract as a non-tenured teacher. Motion rescinding that non-renewal. So we've got, okay, I got Sarah, what was it?
That was me.
Okay, Sarah. Okay, Kathleen.
Yeah, no, it's
No.
fine. It's not tricky.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Any abstained? Okay.
Can I ask about the other two teachers that got renewals, that got
One.
notified in March?
There were 5. There were 5 and now there's 3, yes.
So we put 3 back in, and what about the other 2
Yeah.
positions?
and one resigned,
Oh,
No.
okay,
and we cut the part-time Spanish.
okay, got it,
Okay, okay.
and we. Um. For the teacher who resigned,
That's gonna be under.
yeah, I know that's coming, understood, are we keeping the position though?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
it is-
we're hiring,
okay, so that position is still in. our-
it's still in the budget.
Okay, well, that is the,
But it's paid for by the school readiness grant. It's not paid for by this budget.
we'll talk about that in personnel, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll have more fun.
And it's the same thing with a special ed teacher. A special ed teacher is paid by a federal IDA grant, not by this budget. And the other preschool teacher is paid for by a grant, and two paraprofessionals are paid for by the school readiness grant.
Yes, ma'am.
So that we are, you know, maintaining staff in a cost-effective way.
So, yes, just to finalize that, I'm glad that our board appreciate teachers, yes, some very, loudly pound the table that this is archaic, and I think it is very unique process that I'm not comfortable with at all, but you're right, exactly. So,
Be consistent on this.
Talk to your legislators.
But thank you for coming to support the teachers and all of the folks that we care very strongly.
And the June meeting will have that too.
We gotta decide the June meeting before this closes, before executive session.
Yeah, we gotta do new business first. Okay, so now we are in personnel. So we're here, personnel. Okay.
We don't, we were
would talk
going
about
through the
it.
hiring process. We're not quite there yet. We are interviewing people. There's an interviewing team. We are advertising. We're actively seeking candidates, and we will have something hopefully by the June meeting. If not, we'll have to take that up in July.
And if you know a bus driver, and they're under 80, drag them back.
Pretty recent.
You had some questions, I think that was all clarified about, how it's covered, it's under our liability, highest step payment, but still probably way less than making. So. And that's just one,
Right.
one side. And we're down, they're scrambling stuff.
Yeah.
Constantly.
I'm gonna get my bus license soon. I got booster seat.
Slash motion.
Darlene, come back. And she could, you're ready.
Oh.
Been working in the kitchen. on the bus.
Yeah.
No, go out and watch Lieutenant Tender on that show, the murder on the station, when he left the police department. Because he couldn't take it anymore, he became a bus driver. How you could take that, I don't know.
Okay.
I think I'd rather be.
Yeah, I won't go for that.
Okay, so yes, we're all the upcoming meetings in our
No, Kate, you have to do that, you have to accept that, isn't there a motion to accept the resignation?
Oh,
Oh,
No, we don't.
No, we don't have. any.
Ooh.
That's pretty. Okay. But in.
do I have personnel, under personnel?
Number one, new business.
I will, do we need a motion to accept the resignation of,
We already did it. we did that last meeting, did we?
No, no.
We didn't accept her resignation.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Motion.
Cheryl, it is a motion on the table to accept the meeting minutes. So, yeah, we can change her. All in favor? With regrets. Yes. Thank you for your care of our children.
So we can put that in.
Do we need to do another one?
Oh. No, we will not accept any bus driver resignation. Oh, it's fine.
Hey, what this thing, no?
Now I'm back from Maine.
All right, so we've got a meeting, town budget. Hearing is Tuesday, the 21st.
Yes.
May 21st, the time referendum is the following Tuesday, the 28th at Town Hall. And then our meeting is the date of all graduation. So our consideration is to do it the 6th, the earlier first Thursday, or wait until the second planned meeting.
I think earlier will not better.
And that's the thing.
Me
it's like-
too.
You got it.
Emily and Tammy.
Oh, like 10 minutes after it's over.
No, we got post so far ahead that we have a meeting.
No,
No, the referendum, they go 10 minutes when it closes.
That night.
10 minutes, literally.
If we pass, you could
Hmm.
go way out and we could cancel this meeting after the referendum. But if we lose, we really gotta go back over the budget earlier than the 29th of July.
Right.
So a meeting can be canceled. But it can't be put on like,
Right, so,
you know,
yeah, so Kathy, are you suggesting that we
We're
do
doing
the
the
sixth,
the 6th, or I was gonna say we're the May 30th?
the 6th. And then, or we could even do May 30th, or we could do the 6th,
So when's Memorial?
Hmm.
the 27th.
So the
Yeah,
referendum's
that's
the
a
day
Monday.
after.
Day after that, we could do that for that Thursday.
Amy, is
No,
the
that's
school
that's our
concert,
first night.
Oh,
that's,
okay.
yeah, school concerts, the 30th,
So we can mix this.
May 30th, is a school concert.
We can cancel it,
Here.
yeah.
We can cancel, we can put the 6th, and we're all kind of in agreement with the 6th. If it
Mrs.
goes
Moore.
down. And then
I'm missing
In
game.
hopes that our townspeople come and support
us, and you get all your families out,
and
everybody supports the budget, the school budget.
resources needed to
Yeah.
care for our
Otherwise, we won't go,
education.
we won't go to what, the 21st or something, when's the second? Thursday?
Kathy has me down. Some people will come and vote yes, because they want to support the needs of our school.
Yes.
You do that a lot of times. Okay. And then thinking ahead to the summer sessions, there's July and like August. Sometimes
In
Thought about
July,
that.
nobody's around.
we're not around in August, so that's like, what
I
do you?
think again, that depends on the referendum, where we are. We'll be looking into the budget, and we'll be looking at a second referendum.
Well, you're continuing to talk this way, and I'm not having. So,
I think we can talk about July meeting and,
Yeah.
yes, that's fine. I just wanted to put it in people's, if you guys have you're like, nope, can't be here.
I think we still have the asbestos,
Yeah,
right? So
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
have
have
more
Yeah.
information of that. I think it's probably a little bit too early to.
The fire panel, we'll know more about that too. What
Well,
electrical work we need.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just, that was more the other, like, think about the summer sessions and. Thinking. I'm around. I know the, and there's not, or whatever that meeting is like. August. Early. Okay, all right, do you need a motion to move into executive sessions?
Yeah. Yes.
second.
You want to stay?
The motion to invite Adam into executive session. All in favor, aye. Opposed, motion carries to invite superintendent into the executive session. Thank you very much.